Hello there. I'm Mike Harvey, president of Cimarron Firearms Company. And today we're going to go back in time to our very beginning. All of these know-it-all gun writers these days, they say that Uberti makes the guns, or Pieta makes the guns, or Chiappa makes the guns, or Pedersoli makes the guns, or somebody makes the guns, and then they sell all of them the same to everyone. And we're gonna tell you how much of that is true and how much of it is BS, and then you can decide for yourself. There's another thing that we're going to discuss about the guns, and this is what sets Cimarron apart from everyone else, is that these old guns made in the early 1800s through the end of the 1800s were made by artists, not machinists. The guys that made these guns, they shaped these guns with files, each workstation. If you go to the Buffalo Bill Museum, they have one of Winchester's workstations intact in that museum. And the thing that you'll never forget is how many files each worker had. They had 1,000 files. A file for every detail on these guns was done by that worker's hand. And, you know, all of those workers, they come up with an idea to make the gun look a little better, and they implemented their idea, then everybody that finished the guns did the same thing, and the guns ended up being a piece of art. They're not really a tool. They are a piece of art. And I'm going to show you in that when I started importing these guns, that art was not there. You know, they just made what they thought the gun looked like, and everybody has a different opinion on what something looks like. So they did a good job of beginning, but you know, we got involved in the very beginning of cartridge firearms replicas. Before Cimarron, when we first opened our doors, there were hardly any cartridge guns made. There was a 73 rifle and a 66 rifle. Only in 45 Colt or 357, pretty much with the two calibers, everything. And a 44-40, which is a 44 Winchester centerfire. That's where the WCF comes from. But anyway, Cimarron knew why these guns are so valued by collectors, and it is not because of the gun itself, it's because of the way it was made and the art that is in the gun. They're just the original old Colts and old Winchesters are just beautiful guns. And the factories, Colt and Winchester, they lost track of that over the years. They cut back on doing these curves or this, that, and the other to these guns, and they lost it. And whenever they made the replicas, they're looking at a third generation Colt and making a replica of that. Well, it was the first generation Colts that were the beautiful Colts, and that's where Cimarron comes in. The first thing we did is we took original first generation Colts and we laid them beside everyone's replica, and we started making changes. We changed every detail until our goal was that you couldn't tell if it was an original Colt or a Cimarron without picking the gun up and inspecting it, looking at the name on the gun. This particular Cavalry model is serial number 74. We incorporated in 1984, and this gun was probably made in 84. And this was my personal gun that I kept to use. The first thing I did, Uberti made this gun, and they had the front sight was this size, but it was about an eighth of an inch shorter than this front sight. So I took their sight off and I put this as a second generation Colt front sight. And I put this sight on it so it would shoot properly. All their guns shot a couple of feet high at 20 yards. So, you know, if you're gonna draw on somebody, you gotta aim at their head and you hit them in the belly button. But anyway, this was our first specialty model. This is APKC Cavalry model, US on the frame, Colt's patent dates. And every time I tell you about these features, these are features that Cimarron had made to Uberti. Uberti didn't own a Colt original. So Cimarron took one of our Colt originals out of the safe and we sent it to Uberti so that they could see the detail that we're talking about. Uberti still has that Colt and they still use it if they need it, but they've pretty much duplicated all the detail in the Colt. But it was a first generation, a late first generation Colt, you know, in the 1890s. But if you notice the top strap on serial number 74, the top strap on this one is double the thickness of the original Colt. This is APKC Cimarron that has our own case coloring on it and our own finish. We did a US finish one and this was one of them. And this particular one has our new top strap on it, and you can see the difference in the top strap. This one, the top strap is exactly the same as a Colt, and a lot of other things were changed. There's one feature on the early Colts that really gave it a better look, and that is this bevel between the flutes here. As you see, this on the early Ubertis, they were just flat, but the Colt here, it's radius right in the front here, and it gives the gun a much better look to have this radius here. Just the radiuses are the radius is blending with other lines is what makes the arc in the gun. And every place that Colt or Winchester have these radiuses, we changed the originals so that they also have it. Now, everybody that sells Ubertis, they have that detail on theirs too, because you had to change the machining, you had to change the tooling to do this. So all Ubertis have these features. What they don't have is the internals. We supply the mainspring and all the springs internal to the gun, and other parts to make the gun smoother are made in the United States, and we send them over there to go in our guns. But anyway, there's just a lot of things, just you know, that was changed. But you can see the results of the changes in this gun here. This is number 74. This is number 1200. So within the first 1,000 guns, we made tons of changes to make them more authentic. And the hammers were polished, and we case colored them like Colt did. Colt case colored their hammers and their frames. And so anyway, that's the difference in Cimarron. And it's an ongoing thing. You would think that once they change something that it's changed forever, but you know, when they change machines out and have to change out their programming, somehow it gets tweaked and something changes a little bit. So we have to go in and tell them, hey, you made a change, you need to change this back, and they do it. You know, they're very good to work with. I worked with Aldo Uberti until he passed away, and he was an extremely good friend. And one of these days I'm going to show you the Uberti Museum. All of the handmade guns that Aldo Uberti made for Colt and for his family Cimarron owns these guns. We bought them from the family. So Cimarron owns the Aldo Uberti Museum, and it's quite a number of really great guns, hand finished with little files and stuff. Aldo had a finishing room much like the Winchester original room that's in the museum in Cody, Wyoming. Aldo had a room like that where he went in there and he sat down and he would tinker with these guns and finish them and put the detail on them and get them like he liked them. And when Aldo did a gun, it was perfect. And anyhow, I told Aldo I wanted him to make a gun for me. And he said, no, he said, I won't make one for you, but I will give your daughter one when she marries. But he didn't last that long. And so he didn't make me a gun, but his son Pietro, who's a great guy, Pietro called me about 3 years ago and said, Mike, I know that you always wanted a gun that my father finished. And he said, I have all of the family guns and I have duplicates. He said, I have 3 or 4 of everything we ever made that my dad finished himself, and they're all special serial numbers like AU for Aldo Uberti #1. I've got a couple of safes downstairs full of these guns that Aldo made. They had a big room in their factory where they hung all of their models for people to go in and look at them. And in that room there was a desk and chair and a small filing cabinet, that was empty. And you could ask anybody in the factory, whose desk is that? And they said, that's Mike Harvey's desk. Because Mike Harvey went over there once or twice a year and worked with the factory on all of these changes and bringing out new models. When you're talking about cartridge model firearms, replicas, we brought out every model that is made except the high wall. Navy Arms did that. And we brought out a Schofield made by Army San Marco, and Uberti did a Schofield for Navy Arms. But as far as single actions and all the other guns, all the conversions and the open tops, those were all done by Cimarron. When you read something in a magazine that says that all of these guns are the same, that Uberti makes them or Pieta makes them, and then they just sell them to whoever wants them, and Cimarron is just one of those people. Well, they don't know what they're talking about. They're kind of like they were trained at CNN, and they are the fake gun news. There was an article recently in Guns of the Old West by who is one of these fake gun news guys. He wrote about the history of the Army San Marco conversions, and he said that Dave Anderson went to Army San Marco and got Army San Marco to make conversion. And that's true, but he doesn't know the real story, which Mike Harvey took Dave Anderson and his wife to Italy to meet Army San Marco, because Dave Anderson's a smart guy. He's a good guy. He's my friend. And he was already making conversions from black powder guns. And he had a company that did have the name of his company right. That shocked me. Dave worked with Angelo Bufali, who owned Army San Marco, and they got it, they got a conversion going. Well, Cimarron was also brought this conversion in. Maybe in the next episode, we're going to go on and talk about how the open top came about, and the Richard Mason's conversion by Uberti and the Richards Type 2 by Uberti, and the Remington by Uberti. We had a great time, and we did get a conversion out of it. And Dave imported a few of them, but he couldn't deal with all of the problems that Army San Marco gave you. So the next time I went to the factory, there were boxes and boxes of parts. So I told Angelo, well, just put together guns, you know. Just put those guns together, all of those parts together. And I knew they wouldn't work. When we brought them over here, we got a manufacturing license, and our gunsmith, Lonnie Ammons, in Hearne, Texas, beautiful city of Hearne, Texas. Lonnie, a great gunsmith and a great gun maker, and he made conversions for us, and we sold out all of the Army San Marco parts, and which was hundreds of guns, and then we went to Uberti, and I took an original open top to Uberti and had them make it. That was the first open top made. I have serial number 1 open top. And the open top in conversions are serial numbered with the same series of numbers, you know, and all of those names, Cimarron, you know, trademarked, and because we were the first to have it. And when we come back, we'll go over the open tops and conversions and how they came about, because Dennis gave all of the dates and when this was made and when that was made, and they're all wrong. And everything is wrong. You know, they weren't made in that order. We made the open top first. Then we made the Richard Mason. Then we made the Richards transition model. They were made in that order. Then I just happened to have a Remington conversion laying around, a factory Remington conversion. So I took it over to Uberti after all of the Colts were made, and we made that one. And so anyway, there are more stories to come. Thanks for listening. Bye.